Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility, exposes the deep structural racism that United States society is built on, but which is largely unknown to and unacknowledged by white Americans. In this video, I will explore two themes from White Fragility. One, the structural white supremacy that pervades US society and its socializing effects. And two, the effect of white progressives' negative reactions to feedback about their unconscious racist beliefs. I will then apply this to remote Indigenous schools through the lens of cultural capital and deficit discourse. DiAngelo argues that US society, and any colonised nation, is built on deeply submerged structures that support white supremacy. It can be seen in the domination of society by the institutions of power, the government, banking, the media, education, all overwhelmingly controlled by white people. It is demonstrated in the images and messages that we receive through advertising, movies, political rhetoric. These uphold the unspoken ideology that white is the norm, the human ideal, and black is a deviation from the norm. Society is built from a white standpoint, and this standpoint views white people and their interests as central to and representative of humanity. This ideology is largely unseen by the white people who benefit from it. Like fish, we are swimming in a racialized pool of water. This water seeps into every pore of our body, flooding us with the socialized message that white is superior. We don't see the water, but we feel entitled to it. White progressives firmly place themselves on the good end of a good-bad binary. Racists are bad, but they are not racists, so they are good. White progressives declare that they are colourblind and see everyone as the same. They claim to celebrate diversity and provide antidotes, such as, "I attended a Black Lives Matter rally," as proof. The issue with these statements is the superficiality with which they measure their own beliefs. White people get to be colourblind and get to embrace diversity because they are white. No person of colour will say they are colourblind because their colour shapes every facet of how society engages with them. In this system, white people benefit from the social capital they have in a society which dictates what is good and which messages that white is good. Although they may feel their achievements are because of individual merit, they cannot see the inherent advantages they have in health, education and career because their social capital mirrors what society values. They never have to continually exert effort, swimming upstream in a system that tells them they are undeserving of it. As DiAngelo says, whiteness has psychological advantages that translate into material returns. The good-bad binary is a false dichotomy which obstructs the structural nature of racism. When white people have their socialized racism pointed out to them, they react with anger and offense. They feel attacked and labelled as a bad person. They try to explain the intention behind their words, rather than understanding the effect their words have on people of colour around them. This white outrage serves to maintain the status quo. It stops any deep analysis of unconsciously held individual beliefs, and it steers the conversation away from the issue of race and back to white people's feelings. Indigenous children in remote traditional areas are brimming with cultural capital. They understand the connection to land, kinship ties, and cultural expectations. Remote Indigenous communities know that for their future success, their children need a Western education to empower them with skills for employment, but at the same time want their children to have a strong sense of identification with Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing. However, communities have also expressed concern when witnessing their happy and capable children suddenly lose confidence when commencing school. When Indigenous children from remote areas enter the classroom, they are faced with white language, white curriculum, and white narratives. Their cultural capital is left at the school gate, and instead they are immersed in an environment which is based on the unspoken. That white is superior, that white capital has value, and Indigenous capital does not. In a 2020 study of introducing Indigenous pedagogies, the teachers' responses were overwhelmingly negative. They argued it would be too hard for the students. The unexamined unconscious beliefs of these teachers made it impossible for them to understand why Indigenous pedagogy was important for these children, that it reflected what they understood about the world and positioned their cultural capital as positive. It was the teachers' deficit discourse that made them feel these students would not succeed being taught by this method when they were already unsuccessful at the basics of math and literacy. The low attendance rates and poor NAPLAN scores of Indigenous children are pointed to as marks of failure. These claims miss the point that the deficit is not with the child who doesn't attend and learn. The deficit lies with the school in not being somewhere the student wants to go and not being some place the student can learn. When you are floating in a pool of white supremacy, you cannot understand why the othered around you are drowning instead of swimming. Being asked to change the water and examine your unspoken beliefs about why the water is good for you but poison for others feels like an individual attack against your good, well-earned swimming skills. But until white people question this, the water will always be poisoned for those who are systematically excluded.